Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow guest,
Mr. Solis.
All right, sir. How have you been since Royal Rumble?
Oh, that's about a month ago, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah.
Where does the time go? It's almost March.
Yeah, we're on the road to WrestleMania.
Yeah, we are making a pit stop in, are we in Jeddah or are we in Riyadh?
We're in Jeddah.
That's right. I've been okay, Jack. School is plugging along. We reported 0% positivity rate this week in our school-wide testing.
That's good to hear.
And your boy is negative as well. Look at that, the little rapid test still sitting next to me in my desk. Bam! But yeah, business as usual. Coming up on like interim 3, you will fondly remember from your time in Alliance.
Yeah.
Goodness, and we're like 2 months away from like all that from May, from the onslaught that is May.
Oof, yeah. I remember how difficult the Mays used to be.
Especially junior May.
Yeah, I remember those days.
That's like maybe one of the few times I'm willing to like hear out kids complain about what they have to do and then say, honestly, fair.
Oh man, I remember all the testing, especially for, like you mentioned, junior year, all that testing that had to get done within those few weeks.
Yeah.
Definitely.
My buddy and I we're piloting a schedule that we're trying to give kids enough time to do what they have to do, but also limit the amount of time to do what they have to do because they take forever. And it's like, if you can't answer this question in 10 minutes, what makes us think we're going to answer it in 15? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I get you.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. I've been taking care of myself, you know. Finally, my family and I all tested negative. We were out of the quarantine period, and I got back to working out as I was usually doing.
Ooh.
Been trying to catch up with different things, you know. Mainly, especially wrestling. I've been keeping track of all the stuff outside of WWE. Keith Lee showed up in AEW.
Yeah, he did.
That was cool to see. I hinted, I think it was during our Royal Rumble when we were talking about things to be excited for in other companies. One of the things I alluded to actually happened. Kairi Sane showed back up in Stardom.
She did. I saw that too.
Yeah, a lot of exciting stuff out there, and basically to kind of show that difference in interest. I didn't know when this Saudi event was taking place, and it very much caught me by surprise. Not to find out it was on a Saturday, but to find out it would be showing 9 a.m. here in California.
I missed it too. I watched it on replay twice and missed actually the last match. I read a lot about what happened in the last match, but you're going to do a lot of the heavy lift when we get to the end.
All right, but it was very much a surprise to me. I know obviously time zones, but I was like, waking up early to catch a WWE pay-per-view. It's usually staying up late.
Yeah, but how nice would it have been for some Saturday morning cartoon levels of, of sports entertainment?
Yeah, and a lot of the card definitely reminded me of Saturday cartoons, the way a lot of the booking went, but we'll get into a lot of
shots
that.
fired.
But, so, obviously we're here at Elimination Chamber, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and we start off with Goldberg versus Roman Reigns.
Before we get to that, did you see Miz versus Mysterio?
I did not, because I didn't know, or I went to go get breakfast, and I didn't know that they were actually going to have a match on the pre-show.
I didn't know that. I mean, when I watched the replay doesn't cover the pre-show, so I missed it. And I only bring it up, I guess Mysterio won. Because did you hear about the Miz's post-match interview?
Oh, yeah. He was talking about needing a tag team partner for Mania.
Yeah, to take on the two Mysterios, right? Father and son. And he said that he'd had somebody in mind who was dashing, Jack.
Yeah. For the listeners at home, dashing was a part of Cody Rhodes' old gimmick in the WWE. Dashing Cody Rhodes, and they're hinting at that because, as it's been made known, Cody has not signed an extension with AEW, and though he was working kind of without a contract really these past couple of like weeks and months, now he has just chosen to outright leave AEW.
Yeah. And so he's a free agent, leaving all of us to wonder what his next move is. And so I guess it turns out the Miz's tag team partner is actually going to be Logan Paul.
Yeah.
Revealed on Raw the night after. But I thought it was a worthwhile tidbit that, you know what's funny? They actually edited out in the replay. But they left the part in. They didn't have Miz in the post-match interview, but they did have the commentary team going, I wonder who it's going to be, who's going to partner with the Miz at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and then even on the night after, you know, they're making a ton of references because they know all the reports of, you know, reportedly being interest in both sides to sign Cody back to WWE. I think I forget what I'm forgetting now what exactly Edge said, but he like specifically like brought up a phrase that made a lot of people think about.
He brought up smoke and mirrors.
There we go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely a ton of hinting that.
Gracious.
A ton of hinting.
Well, we have a Universal Championship match at stake, and so now it's the card, and Roman has made it clear if he's not last, he's first.
Mm-hmm. So here he.
And what do you think, Jack, of Roman Reigns coming out first?
I noticed that too, and I was like, man, it's always kind of weird to see the champions come out first because you expect them to come out. You know, it's always that thing of like. I think at some point someone needs to really break it down, the statistics, but like for the most part, it's kind of people's common knowledge that champion comes out first kind of almost signals them losing.
And there's a couple of things later where they play with the order of things. It's awkward. Like they make it awkward. But as far as Roman goes, I kind of like the all eyes on me, right? There's no other guy in the ring. I'm the first person to come out officially on the card. Acknowledge me. Dang it. I think it works.
Yeah. And also I think because of the theatrics that go into Goldberg's, you know, entrance, they probably have him come out first too, just to... I mean, technically, I feel like both kind of take the same amount of time because Roman does a lot of times take a really slow walk to the ring.
My guy, the bell rang for this first match about 15 minutes into the card. And to the replay.
Yeah, so, you know, got to get their entrances in. And what was pretty much expected, you know, a really short and to the point match.
Yeah. This guy on Cultaholic predicted, he said, either Roman's going to win a very short match or Goldberg's going to win a very long, drawn-out match. I'm glad they went with the former. Yeah,
you know, it makes sense. Adds more, you know, in a sense, filler to Roman's reign, you know, give him...
hey, and now he's officially beaten every other Universal Champion in that title's history.
Yeah. You know, they got the match that they wanted 2 years ago out the way. They add another, you know, big name to his reign and defenses.
Yep. And I was all about the spear into the guillotine. Like I thought that was like a solid use of like both men's moves.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that too. And
he win. Does he win with the guillotine?
Yeah, he wins. Goldberg. I can't remember if Goldberg passes out, but I know I don't know if he taps out, but I think he might have passed out.
The referee stops the match. Yeah. That's what I'm reading on CBS Sports. So like. Goldberg saves face. This is like another opportunity where he couldn't be stopped, he couldn't be pinned, but you could stop the blood flow in his neck.
Yeah, and I think another thing this also accomplishes is they don't waste a challenger on Roman, you know, because like as I mentioned, this is filler for the road to Mania, you know, so it's like they don't have to throw a guy like Drew or.
Rollins.
Rollins again for another match, you know. They
got it, yeah. I hear you.
pretty decent match for what it was. You know, like I said, short and to the point. Now we're just on, again, road to WrestleMania, building for him versus Brock.
Mm-hmm.
And then our next match, the women's chamber match to determine who will challenge Becky Lynch at the Royal at WrestleMania.
Excuse me, who will challenge Becky Lynch or Lita, depending on the events of later tonight?
That is true. That is true.
Jack, we have Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Doudrop, Rhea Ripley, Nikki Ash, and a returning Alexa Bliss participating in this Elimination Chamber. And I read off the names to tell you, Jack, that I timed it, and their entrances, all 6 ladies' entrances, tally more time than the Roman match.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And, like, you know what was exciting? Like, because it's a big old stage out there in Jeddah. It is a WrestleMania-size event out there in a big old stadium with 100,000 people. And it was just exciting to see, like, Nikki Ash, like, you know, giving her time. You know what I mean? No one got the jobber entrance. Doudrop got this mammoth entrance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody got a chance to shine. Nothing was rushed. And, like, you know, I was being mindful of, like, hey, man, we're still... It's taking 12 minutes for these ladies to get to the chamber. But it was exciting that, like, that spotlight was put on these ladies.
Yeah, and, you know, to further add to that, you know, obviously things are different out in Saudi. You know, the women have to cover up. To add kind of further to that, I really liked how all 6 women took, like, a unique approach to that rule where in the past we've seen them kind of wear just the full-on bodysuits and some oversized
t-shirt. An oversized t-shirt.
Yeah. All 6 women came out with pretty unique looking gear. You know, I saw a lot of people saying that they thought Nikki's superhero gear in that full body suit looked better than her normal one. You know, a lot of people really liked the gears that a lot of the women pulled out.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jack, because I definitely noticed and appreciated that compromise. And I guess it's the objection to skin that they are adhering to, because those were some form-fitting bodysuits. You know what I mean? Like, I go, is this not worse than what they usually wear? Because Rhea Ripley is wearing just full-on black latex. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this checks a couple of people's boxes, man.
Yeah.
My.
I mean, but, you know, they made the most out of their situation, and then, going back to what you were alluding with the timing and order of stuff, you know, you have each participant coming out, you know, getting into their pods.
Yep.
And then you have, I think who started out this match? Was it?
It was, I think, Liv Morgan.
And Nikki, right?
And Nikki.
Yeah, and they're in the ring, and they're both standing there, and you're like, wait, who... One of you's supposed to go to a pod, but then out comes Alexa Bliss last.
Yep.
And she goes to her pod instead of her coming out to get in the pod before the other two. Like,
so it's just real awkward, but they wanted to have Alexa last because she's, you know, the top draw of that whole group of 6 people. And so they go, whatever, we're just going to have 2 people awkwardly stand in the ring while she takes her pod.
And not only that, they pan over to the pod and she has a swing in there.
A custom pod. I was very appreciative for the swing.
I thought that was funny. And then I like how the commentators played it up too, where they were like, man, those other competitors must be jealous that she gets to sit while they all have to stand.
That's funny.
But theatrics aside, sir, what do you think of the match overall?
I thought the match was pretty good. Again, like the entrances, everyone got a good showing. Doudrop looked vicious. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
Liv looked, you know, like a formidable challenger to everyone. And we got a bit of a payoff for Rhea versus Nikki.
Yeah, I really liked a lot of the story elements playing out. And, you know, really a lot of people got to shine, especially when Bliss finally came out. You know, she got some, like, real momentum and offense in to start off.
Yeah, she came out and, like, showed everyone she can wrestle again. I think, like, part of her gimmick and part of her character is, like, try to mask her limitations in the ring. I guess maybe she's been dealing with injuries. She seems to be okay now.
Yeah, and oof, man, like some of the spots I got. There was a scary spot where Liv gets knocked into the pod and her leg got caught on the
Oh
top of the
yeah, and
turnbuckle.
Dewdrop, right? It looks like she's just being a big old bully, knocking her over, but really she helped Liv out of that precarious situation so quick and seamlessly.
Yeah, that was really good. And then, you know, I kind of expected Nikki to go out first, and then I think my dad I think he might have expected Liv to go out next. You know, just because of the way they've kind of been building up Dewdrop. But
Yeah.
man, that power bomb she took, I think it was from
Liv,
yeah, from Liv.
a sunset power bomb off the top rope, indeed.
Yeah, that one was really crazy to see. You know,
Yeah.
I always kind of get a bit tense when I see them doing that spot where they're gonna jump over and flip, all because of the Seth Rollins incident back in
Right.
like 2015. You know, but then I saw like she was doing the sunset flip and not like flipping to stand, and I was
Yes.
like, wow, that was really cool to see. And Dewdrop goes out second, but they all got pretty much time to shine.
Yep. You know, and like another thing I like about this Elimination Chamber that played out through the whole match. Really, if any one of them won, it would have been exciting, a big jolt in the arm that this division needs. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
a great selection of possibilities, but we came down to the final three, which were Alexa, Bianca, and was it Rhea?
Yeah,
And you're like, I'm 1,000% down with any of these ladies winning.
yeah.
You think the only one I would push for is Bianca, because she's got some comeuppance that she is owed by
Yeah.
big time you know who. Like she's just we got to come back to that story. And
Yeah.
so, is that what we get, Jack? Did the WWE give us what we want? Like Dave Bautista, give me what I want. Give me what I want.
Yeah, you know, I real quickly want to mention, you know, as you mentioned, the different story elements we played. You know, with the Bianca thing, we're seeing good long term storytelling play out. You know, all the way from SummerSlam last year to now.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it good, Jack, but I will acknowledge it's long term.
Yeah, you know, we're hoping to get. I mean, I think I agree in the sense that I don't think we can call it good until we see the payoff.
Yeah.
You know, but to even add on to that, they really played up what they really should have last year in that they're playing up kind of Bliss and Rhea's interaction, because if you remember, Rhea eliminated Bliss from the Rumble, and they kind of played that off a bit in their sequences where it's like you're hoping they might revisit that, you know, again, long-term storytelling, revisit that to give women not in the title scene, give them stories to at least, you know, have that interest week to week.
Yeah.
But so Rhea goes out and we're left with Bliss and Bianca, and I really like this final two because, you know, like you said, the final three, obviously anyone could have won and people would have been happy, but this one, the final two was even better because it was like Bliss is returning. Obviously she could win, get that big win from returning, but then there's Bianca who needs that payoff from her story going all the way back to SummerSlam last year. And you know, there was really a ton of moments where like it looked like Bliss was gonna get the win, but then Bianca finally hits that KOD, and you know, until someone finally kicks out of it, we know once that move is hit, it's over. Yeah, so Bianca gets that and gets the win. She's on her road to WrestleMania to face off against the winner of Becky and Lita. Hoping obviously hoping that it's Becky to get that comeuppance.
Yep.
And overall, a really nice showing for the Raw Women's division, you know.
Agreed.
They have a ton of big time players there that they've built up pretty well. And I don't know. I mean, the chamber match kind of felt short, but I think that's only because the action was really fast paced in it, you know, compared to the other ones.
It probably was short, but you know, it never dragged. They didn't try anything stupid, you know, like they didn't try anything like Bailey, Sasha levels of like convoluted, you know.
Yeah.
It looked like it hurt. They got the job done. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I think I prefer them going short and leaving me wanting more that they can then do on later pay-per-views.
Yeah, you know what this thing has going against it too is it's the first of two. We got another one coming up, right?
Yeah.
You hate to see things happening on both, so I'm sure they left some things on the table for the men to carry.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why we didn't see any type of spot of like, you know, breaking the pods open or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, we saw them utilize more so the chain of the cage, you know, and the grates on the bottom, you know. So really good match. And like I said, really good showcase of just that Raw women's division, you know. And I bring it up a lot because when we get to our next match, it's like it's kind of the polar opposite of brands, you know, where the next match is Ronda and Naomi versus Sonya and Charlotte. And
it is the SmackDown women's division, but
yeah, that's pretty much all we have because we don't really see any other women on SmackDown compared to Raw.
Can you imagine, Jack, that they didn't have like a SmackDown women's chamber match because they don't have enough women?
That was my thought. I think that's what I told my dad. I was like, they couldn't have a SmackDown one because, I mean, you throw Charlotte in, you throw Naomi. Who else are you really going to throw in?
Goodness gracious. But yes, we have Ronda Rousey and Naomi versus Charlotte Flair and Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville comes out to the ring with her arm in a sling because Ronda is a big bully. And so, to be fair, Ronda is going to have one arm tied behind her back. And Jack, I didn't realize this was an actual stipulation we were going to uphold.
Yeah, I had heard about like that, like it was mentioned, and I was like, that just seems like such a weird stipulation. And then, they mentioned it on commentary, which is kind of the explanation as to why it happened. But, you know, they start the match off. Ronda has her arm tied completely behind her back, you know, like in that 90-degree type angle.
Yeah.
And then you see her...
it slips. You know, it slips, so then it's like on her side. But really, she fights the whole match one-armed. You know what I mean? Like, it's still tethered to her body.
Yeah, and, you know, commentary kind of explains, like, why they did that, and it was for safety, because they mentioned, you know, if she lands wrong, you know, that could be terrible for her arm. It's like, yeah, that is kind of true. If she takes a certain bump and her arm is completely back here, things could go wrong, so it makes sense.
There are guys like William Regal who used to put an arm back there so you landed on it.
Yeah.
You know, like a body slam, but twisting the arm so that you're like, back right into that forearm.
Yeah, but really weird stipulation for this match. But what do you think of it?
It was. I hope the audience can hear this. It's like a violin scratch, you know, because like you know what? It's so funny. Like for however it started, I'm grateful Naomi and Sonya Deville's story is still continuing. And I wouldn't call it good long-term storytelling, but I do like this commitment to continue their story. It looks like it's going to get a proper payoff at WrestleMania. So, like, again, it's nice that people are being used on TV. Ronda is incredible, one-handed, with her legs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just Charlotte's existence and her, you know, and her character, and it's just not entertaining. And I'm just like, but why though? Poor Sonya. I know who's going to take the pin in this exchange.
Yeah, it was pretty easy to tell that from the beginning, you know.
Goodness.
It was either going to end with Charlotte getting the pin on someone or the other Ronda or Naomi getting the pin on Sonya.
Even better still, it was Ronda putting in a armbar. But Jack, how do you put an armbar on somebody with one arm tied behind your back? She figured it out because we all saw her do it.
Yeah, and you know, I totally forgot. I guess we got to mention this because we were talking about the women's gear in the last match. Ronda came out with her I think judo gear, and they you know, to basically play up her legitimacy like they do with Brock. They mentioned that she's like a 6-time black belt or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And it was, you know, the full body affair. So like it was her creative and character driven approach to, you know, the bodysuit thing.
Yeah. But, you know, short and quick match for the most part.
Yeah, and up to this point, I'm calling the women's chamber match the match of the night so far.
Same here. I think of my dad that's probably my dad's match of the night. As far as we go, we saw some ratings of like different people giving like the star ratings like they do, and it was like the entire time me and my dad were just wondering why people were giving the women's chamber match such low ratings because we thought it was really good.
Absolutely. CBS Sports gave it an A-.
Yeah, I'd probably give it the same. Like I said, great showcase of that division on Raw.
Mm-hmm.
But continuing with the SmackDown side, we move on with Drew McIntyre versus Madcap Moss.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jack, if you had to explain to the listener who Madcap Moss is, how would you describe him?
Despite there being probably millions of words in this world's dictionary and vocabulary, I don't know how I'd describe Madcap Moss.
I don't know what a Madcap is. He used to be called Riddick Moss. Now he's Madcap Moss. And yeah, he's just, I guess, drawing the ire of Drew McIntyre and his sword.
Yeah, and we forgot to mention it during our Rumble booking, but the only thing I can tell people is he's somehow the man who eliminated AJ Styles in that last Rumble.
Goodness gracious. The guy wears suspenders to the ring. He tells funny dad jokes. And I call him funny because, I get a tickle.
Yeah, and essentially this is kind of filler because they did have a match at day one, but this one's kind of even more filler because it looks like we're building for Drew versus Corbin at Mania.
Yeah, and this is Falls Count Anywhere.
Yeah, so they added stipulation Falls Count Anywhere, obviously, due to them messing around with Drew. They did utilize it somewhat, but they obviously had certain limitations.
Oh, they fought up the ramp. They fought back down to the ring. That's about as far as they got from the ring.
Yeah, a lot of people, kind of enjoyed the showcase that Madcap Moss got, but the main point of the match that got people, the main spot is Drew has Madcap, he has him in position for a reverse Alabama slam. A typical Alabama slam for the listeners is when, you have them over your shoulders, you're holding onto their legs, they're completely over, and you flip them back over that they land on their back. So the reverse is they're going to land face first onto the mat. But,
right.
You're supposed to take this move flat. The reason why this spot is talked about a lot is Drew does the move to Madcap, and whether through muscle memory or whether he was trying to do a roll out of the move, instead of falling face first, he lands straight on his head and neck.
Golly, it looks so bad. And you're right, muscle memory, he might have just instinctively tucked his chin. There's a couple of moves you're not supposed to tuck your chin for.
Yeah. And so he took that straight on the head and neck, and, props to Baron Corbin. As after the ref kind of checked on him and made sure he was okay, Baron Corbin immediately gets him out the ring and starts getting into it with Drew so that he can kind of rest up a bit and not take...
Yeah, just like Dewdrop, saving Liv from that precarious and dangerous spot. Happy Corbin, jumped right into, rodeo clown, checks in on the Madcap and starts pulling Drew and the audience's attention away from Madcap while he's getting checked. He's like, hey, don't, come here, boy.
Yeah, gets the attention for him, and then, props to Madcap for continuing the match after that, From all accounts, apparently he's doing well. No major injuries or concussions to come out of that. Very scary to see, though. And
it was terrifying. And how often did they replay it? Goodness gracious.
Yeah, they kept replaying it over, and I was like, usually when it comes to these botches, you don't show it as much. You hide it.
My word.
What was it? Full Gear, when they had Danielson versus Miro, and they kind of botched the finish, and they didn't even show a replay. Yeah. It's like they usually do that, where it's like, don't even bother showing the replay. But WWE was like, hey, do you want to keep watching this one moment over and over?
Instagram is just as bad if you're scrolling through your Explore page, and it's like, hey, want to see the most exciting and terrifying 3 seconds of this match? Over and over again, over and over again.
Yeah, it's like you keep seeing it over and over, and all you can think about is that Simpsons clip. Stop, stop, he's already dead.
Thankfully, he's fine. Didn't win. Got pinned by Drew standing on his chest, pointing his sword at Happy Corbin, implying perhaps he's next.
Yeah, Drew even took a swing at Corbin with that sword.
I loved Happy Corbin's reaction because he, rolls out of the ring after Drew takes a legit swipe at him, and like there's all like a crack in his voice. He's like, "What the heck was that?" And then the ref looking at him like, I mean, it's false count anywhere. I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this situation.
Yeah, and then he even hits Madcap with the Claymore while holding it because, no one taught Drew
Hit
not
the
to run with sharp
Claymore
objects.
while holding a, 4-foot sword.
I mean, I've seen a lot of people kind of, in a sense, feel bad that, like, this is the feud Drew has found himself stuck in. But, like,
yeah,
my kind of counter to that, not to defend, being stuck in a feud like this because, some fans don't like Corbin and Moss as much, but, like,
yeah.
What do you want WWE to do when all of last year, all people were crying for, or not crying, but, asking for was, can we get Drew away from the title scene?
Agreed. And you know what? Happy Corbin is an underrated, character wrestler, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's himself. You know what I mean? Like, this is like what you hear legends talk about. It's you ramped up to 11, right? Like, we're seeing now the guy who sears steaks and has dogs and smokes cigars out there. He's not the king anymore. He's not King Corbin. He's not the constable obnoxiousness. And he's not that, lone wolf motorcyclist weird thing they try to do in NXT. Like, this, I think, is him. And he's got an impressive moveset. He reminds me of Post Malone. Post Malone has got songs that you like, but you wish you didn't like because you don't want to like Post Malone. Happy Corbin has moves. I'm like, God, why does he have such a great moveset? Yeah. Why does it have to be him? He has such a great choke slam, Steve Six, that corner spot. And the end of days that nobody's kicked out of.
Yeah, man. I even surprised my dad because I told him that there have been interviews and people have asked him this. Baron Corbin has gone on record and said he'd rather never win a world title if it meant that no one ever kicks out of the end of days.
That's incredible. So he's on track to do just that. Yeah,
I think Corbin's gonna be one of those guys that at the end of his career they're gonna realize how selfless he was, because he's put over so many of these guys.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, and, with his moveset, I mean, I personally can't wait to see him and Drew go at it at Mania.
Honestly, it could be a really great match.
Yeah.
Because they're two big men who can do the graps. Yeah. Let's transition, Jack, to two women who can do the graps. Yeah. It's Becky Lynch defending her Raw Women's Championship against Hall of Famer Lita.
Yeah. Saw Lita come back for the Rumble. And she turned her attention now. She comes back for a match against Becky. And I think this accomplished, multiple things, I think it was because even though herself said WWE didn't have plans for after the event for her, it kind of gave them that test to let's see if she can go in the ring and maybe get her on a Goldberg type deal where, she'll have a match
once in a while.
Yeah. And it also accomplished that, if they even don't want to do that, they at least give Lita a proper final match to end her career.
Absolutely. Hey, Jack, how much time we got?
10 minutes.
Oh, good. What did you think of the match?
I thought it was a really good match. I thought their styles kind of meshed well, and Lita kind of proved that she still has a little bit in the tank, for a Goldberg type deal,
If we're comparing her to Goldberg, she was about as graceful as Goldberg, I don't know. She just wasn't running to the corner as fast as I was hoping. You saw some hesitation there, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is on Becky. It has to be on Becky because it's the heel who calls the match. I heard so many of those calls. Did you?
Yeah.
And now slap. Duck. Roll. I don't know who mic'd that ring, but goodness gracious, man. Turn it off.
Yeah, pipe up the crowd noise a bit more.
You know.
I mean, pretty decent match for, what it was, really. Mm-hmm. It served both, the purpose, like I said, of giving Lito that potential final match, and kind of giving a quote-unquote dream matchup for the people, especially of Jeddah, It's something that I've noticed as, like, the Saudi events continue on. Like, the people of Jeddah and really Saudi Arabia at these events are, like, I want to say almost more appreciative than any other crowd. Or like,
I'm inclined to agree with you there, Jack, because there were "Let's Go Goldberg" chants. I think there were some serious Lita chants, right? And you think those aren't in the can. They didn't record those and pipe those in because those are unique. Like, a couple of chants we've heard in the last couple of shows.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people kind of show appreciation to them, and like, the reason I bring it up is because, like, to me, it's like, obviously there's reasonings as to why people might not like these Saudi shows, but like, the like one justifiable reason is like, you see the crowd's reaction. You just kind of remember that, like, kind of put away all the outside stuff and realize that the people attending these events are the fans, that.
Yes, I 100% have to stop and remember that these people watch TV and you wish you can see them in person. And what a unique opportunity these folk have in a show like Saturdays.
Yeah, so they really should.
Like even if Goldberg is, 2 decades past his prime, You don't let yourself think of that. You're like, I finally get to see a Goldberg match. I get to, and like, how much of it is the music? How much of it is the walk to the ring? How much of it is just the spear? I saw a spear in person. I saw 2 spears in person. You got to see Lita hit that moonsault. Goodness gracious!
It's funny because Wrestle Talk, they have like their obviously like a lot of other wrestling channels. They have the top 10 lists and stuff.
Yeah,
and they had not really a trilogy, but like a series of just like talking about like all the aspects outside of the actual wrestling match. And they like joked around where I think they did a list like on like the finishers and like the entrances and stuff. And they were like, they were like talking about like, how people enjoy the entrances, the finish of the match, based off of like one move, like the stunner, and they made the joke, that like for a lot of people, the actual wrestling is the worst part of wrestling, that they get most of the joy out of the entrances, the finishing spots of the match.
Yeah.
And it's like you mentioned, it's like putting a lot of it aside, it's like these people, like you mentioned, get to see these big entrances in person, especially because that stage is huge. They have the budget to put on like huge firework displays, as we see with a lot of the talent's entrances, and they really do show their appreciation because the match wraps up, Becky retains, and Becky kind of has her moment of flaunting, and it kind of like looked like Lita was gonna leave, but then Becky almost like kind of gestured her to stay, and Becky leaves to give Lita that final moment. They hit Lita's music, and she gets to soak in the crowd's reaction and thanking her for her match,
Yeah.
Really appreciative, and it's not like, obviously I'm not saying that we as fans should sit here and force ourselves to like a lot of the stuff, but like, it's also like, at the end of the day, you got to realize it's not so serious at times.
Here, sir.
But, decent enough match. There's about 5 minutes left, so that's obviously not enough to talk about the men's chamber match, especially a lot of what happens there.
It is enough time to talk about the Smackdown tag team match between the Usos and the Viking Raiders.
I completely forgot about it. Instant classic, right, sir?
Oh, I'll never forget it.
5.5 stars,
Mm-hmm. A star for each second that it didn't happen. Folks, it didn't happen. The Viking Raiders made a giant entrance, a giant Jeddah-sized WrestleMania-esque entrance, only to get jumped by the Usos and deemed unable to compete. And there we go. An advertised SmackDown Tag Team Championship match didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, they're going to do it on a SmackDown. I hope they save it for Mania. Because, like, Mania is going to be the point where they get the time.
Goodness gracious. Why did they do it at all, Jack? Nope, we're not going to spend these 5 minutes being negative. Nope. We're going to wrap up. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the one match I didn't see. You're going to tell me all about it. And then you said you had something else you want to talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about it then. If you want to look on the bright side, the Viking Raiders got a free vacation.
Yes, they did.
But so we'll close out here. Thank you for joining us for part 1 of this Elimination Chamber review. Tune into the next episode where I'll fill in Mr. Solis on the men's Elimination Chamber and the topic I want to get into, the brand split.
Dun, dun, dun.
So we'll see y'all in the next episode.